I have prepared some slides here. ERPNext or Frappe has two ways of setting up multi-tenancy. I have opened up the documentation for Frappe. You can just search Frappe multi-tenancy on the search bar and the Frappe documentation, and you are going to land onto this page. Now I recommend that you read carefully through the steps that they have given here, but there is ideally two ways that you can set up multi-tenancy in Frappe. And when I say Frappe, I also mean inside of ERPNext, because ERPNext is built on top of Frappe. So of course, by default, it takes in all the settings and configurations that come out of the box with the Frappe framework. So if you have more than one site, and maybe you want one of your sites to become the default site, you can switch that by doing bench use. Then you supply your site name here, and it is going to be Frappe is going to switch your site, the default site, to whatever you have here. So here we have two types of setting up multi-tenancy. The first one is what is called port-based multi-tenancy. I do not like this myself, so you can just read through these steps, and if you like it, you can go ahead and do this. Today I'm going to show you what is known as DNS based multi-tenancy. This is what I have found mostly to work for me, and it is what I'm going to be showing you in this course. So there are steps that they have provided here, but I am not going to be using this myself. I'm going to use steps that I have put out in on my slider here, or on my presentation. So here we have two things. I mean two slides, and in each slide I have provided some steps. The first step is to set up your instance. That is what you do on your instance, on your Frappe instance, to set up multi-tenancy. And then in the second slide, we have what you have to do on the system that you are running, so that you can configure multi-tenancy to kick in and become usable. So let me go to my site here. You see, this is a site that we have been using to study ERPNext and Frappe. And I would like this site at the end of it to have multi-tenancy implemented into it by the end of this video. And I also want us to show some other things pertaining to currency still inside of this course. So let's jump into this. The first step we have here is to set up the DNS. So we can go to our terminal here, and let me just confirm that this is our instance. So let me run that. I can also make this bigger so that you're able to see well. And then I split this window. This I can condense. We don't need a lot of space there. And let me make this bigger. So that means I can just make this smaller. We don't need a lot of that. Yeah. Then here I am at, that is not where I want to be. Clear. And then, am I in the right? Let me just confirm. Yeah, that is training. So fine. So let me just sudo su here and go to ERPNext. And then and then I supply my password. You can see the user has been changed. It was Karani, now it's ERPNext. You have to do that, remember. And then I do that bench, and then my thing is training. And then once you're in that directory, the commands that I have provided here are going to work out of the box. So you can just copy them. Copy this, and I need to be in the terminal. I'll paste it here. Bench configure DNS on, turn it on. You can see we don't have an error, so that is successful. The second step is to create your site. Okay, so we can just go ahead and create a site. So bench, or let me just copy this so that I be sure that the steps I have provided are correct and they are working. So remove that, paste. The second thing is bench new site, first.site. Remember, this site you can call it whatever you want to call it. I can decide to call this training.1. So this is the first site, training.1. Then you're going to have training.2. If you have hosted maybe your site or your ERP instance on a URL called training.com, you may need to do your site something like maybe karani.training.1. so this extension is going to remain. All right, and then when when you go to create a second site, let's say this is your second customer. Let's say for instance this is a multi-tenant application you have. It's a SaaS, it's a software as a service. You have karani.com set up as your base URL. Maybe it has just a simple website telling your users what you do and what services you are providing or what your application is doing, and then at the back of it you are running ERPNext. This is where you can apply such things. So every time a customer comes, the system, you can automate this such that the system just goes ahead and creates the site, and then after it has created the site, it is going to go ahead and do the next steps. By the next steps, I mean the steps that we are going to see, mostly the steps that are inside of this second slide that we have here. So if your site is training.com, you may need to have sites or subdomains such as karani.training.com. Then maybe another client comes who is called Elijah. You have elijah.training.com. And then maybe you have another client who has come who is called Mohammed, so you have mohammed.training.com. so that is basically what we mean by multi-tenancy. That means that your site can be used by more than one people. And remember that what happens in ERPNext is that it creates a database for every single user or every single client that you will create. So every site that ERPNext will create for a multi-tenancy application will be using its own database. It's not going to be mixing up databases. It is going to be creating a database for every site. I am going to be showing you that when we finish creating the sites. You are going to see, and we are going also to confirm that it has created a site for every single, a database for every single site. All right, so let me just delete that and then we call this karani dot, or I can actually call it so training.com. Let me assume that is my first site, and this thing is going to ask me for my password. Remember, this is the convention. Every time you are installing a new site, you have to provide your MySQL root password. Let me provide my password, and if that is correct, Frappe is going to go ahead and start installing or setting up my site, the site that I have created here. Let me open code here briefly. I think I may also need to make this bigger for the sake of your eyes. I am inside of my folder, and if you go here, this is the site that we created first. It's called frappe.training. So this is by default going to be treated as our default site. Then the site that is getting configured right now is this one, karani.training.com. okay, then we are going to also create another site so that we have enough data to test. Okay, so the admin password here you can provide. So let me provide my password. The system wants me to confirm it, and then that one has been created successfully. All right, let's go back to our slides. So we have done that. Then we need to run bench setup nginx. So we are going to copy that command. I'm going to paste it here. That is the command, and then I click on go, and this sets up the nginx successfully. The next step is a sudo service nginx reload. Sometimes you may need to do this, so I have included it there. Most of the time I don't find myself needing to do that, so I will not run that. And then this other step is very important. This is where now you take the application that you have or applications that you have on your instance and install them on the site that you have just created. So I am going to take this command, the whole of it. Let me just highlight it and copy, and then I'm going to go back here, and then I'm going to paste. But then remember, my site is not called first.site. We have created a site called karani.training.com. So I can just go ahead and also copy this, and then I paste it here. All right, so we have bench site karani.training.com install app ERPNext. Let me click that, and then this thing is grabbing ERPNext. The ERPNext that it is grabbing is the one that we have on our apps directory. Okay, you see we have ERPNext, we have Frappe, and we have library management. We have 3 applications here. So what this means is that this is the app we are installing on top of this site, the karani.training.com. Remember, it was already installed in frappe.training. Okay, and then here we have library management application. We are also going to install it on top of this. So what that means is every site that you create, you're going to get or grab all the applications that you have here and install them on top of your site. And this is a process that can be automated, my friends. So you do not need to don't start thinking like you have to do this manual process every time you have a client if you are offering this thing as a SaaS or as a software as a service. The only thing you need to do is just to write a script. Let me just confirm this is that's going on smoothly. You write a script. Where were we? We were not here. We were not there either. So where were we? Here. Yeah. You do not need to come here and configure these things manually the way we are going to do here today. We are doing this only because this is for the purpose of this training. But if you are doing this on the real world, you are supposed to automate this in such a way that every time you have a registration, so a customer registering on your application, maybe you can have a check. Like if they have paid, you just go ahead and run a script that will get their name, and then they are going to create a site, and then it's going to install all the applications that you have and that you want to sell to your customers, or that you want your customers to use on top of that site, and then it is going to go ahead and add it to the hosts file that we are going to see, and that customer is going to go to be able to use the application without necessitating you to do anything else. All right, so this has successfully installed, and now we can go back here. You see that was our last step. So if you have a second site, so let's say we want to do a second site, so we need to do all the steps that we have ran. Our first thing was to configure DNS for multi-tenant. So we can go ahead and do that. You can just teach yourself as a convention to do that. And then the next thing is to install a second site. Let's assume our second site is not going to be Karani, it's going to be something like Geoffrey. So geoffrey.training.com, go ahead and install the site. I will provide my password, and my password is going ahead, I mean Frappe is going ahead and grabbing this stuff and setting up my site, and now we give it time to finish. All right. So if you have hosted your application maybe on a VPS, the steps don't change. You're going to follow the same steps to set up your sites, and also to do all kinds of installations that we are going to be doing here. Let me also provide this password, and I confirm that I know what I have typed, and that has been done. And then after we did this, the next thing was to set up NGNX. Remember we did this. It's going to ask you whether you are serious, whether you want actually to rewrite it. Yes, I am going to tell it yes, I know what I'm doing. So go ahead and rewrite it and put in new settings. And then the next thing, of course, after you have done that, is to install the site on, not the site, but your apps on top of your site. So this one now is Geoffrey. Okay. So this step now is grabbing ERPNext app, and it is setting it up on top of my site here, or our site here, that we have called geoffrey.training.com. So let's give it a couple of minutes, and I can see the speeds are not bad, so it's going to finish this in a few minutes. So you may be needing some knowledge on how to do scripts preferably in Python, that are going to be helping you to automate some of these processes, so that your application is just going to be doing these steps without necessitating you to do them manually. But if you are comfortable doing them manually, which is not, of course, it's not a scalable business model, you can also do it that way. But I highly recommend that you learn some scripting that you can use to automate these processes. So it's almost 90%. And now we are done with this step. We have installed two sites. Remember, there's the site that was set up when we were setting up our application, and by the way, I should have shown you this. You see, now in our sites directory we have three. We have frappe.training, which is the site that was configured initially when this one has finished successfully when we installed our application for the first time. We have karani.training.com. This is the one we started by creating today. And then we have a second site called joffrey.training.com. So what we need to do now is to do the second steps, or to go to the second slider here and do what we have here. This thing, what it does, and by the way, this one has a slash here. What this does, or what you are required to do here, is to navigate to your etc hosts file and add the sites that you have created. If you have 20 sites, you are going to add them here. And that is why I'm saying this process is best automated. Just don't do this manually. It will be so tiring and it will not be scalable. Maybe what you'll be needing to do is to wake up in the morning to see whether there was a registration in your website, and then you start jumping with your machine to create this user. But if you just write a simple script, it may take you maybe some few hours to do this, or minutes. If you are very good at it, you set it up and that will be it. This thing will be doing all this work by itself. A user creates an account and then it goes ahead and does all of the work for you. So let's go ahead and add this manually in our case, because this is a training environment. So I can split this so that I don't lose everything. I can just do that. So we have left the instance that we are working on is on top here, and below here we have another instance where we can do that. So I'm going to cd into etc and then hosts. No, I don't want to cd into that. I want to nano into etc and then hosts file. You see, this is what we have in the hosts file. So we will need here to add the URL. So we are going to add localhost here, because that is what we are running with. Look, our instance is running on localhost. So what we need to put here is localhost, so 127.0.0.1, and then here we are going to provide the name of our site. Then the sites that we have created, one of them is called karani.training.com. Now remember, if you have a domain called training.com, this thing is going to work. Okay, this thing is going to work. All right, so if your domain is called xyz.us or .whoever.ind for India, or I don't know, this is what you're going to provide here. If you have hosted your site on a VPS and you have connected the domain and it is working. If you want to have a subdomain that is running ERPNext as a multi-tenancy, this domain has to resolve to a true domain name. You cannot cook these things and expect them to work. They are not going to work. Ours is going to work probably because we are running on localhost and it doesn't just go out of this computer. But if you are running yours on a live environment, please make sure that the domains you provide here are true domains. And then the second one is 127.0.0.1, and then we are going to have joffrey.training.com. all right, so we have those two here. So if we had 100 sites that we created there, we would put all of them here and then point them to our localhost, and they are going to listen to that. The next thing, I'll just press Control X to tell it to exit, and I'm going to tell it yes, please write those changes, and yes. Permission denied, I think what I needed to do here, let me just Control X and then Control N to tell it not to save. And this is Karani, so I think I need to do sudo and then nano to allow me sudo permissions, and then I'm going to do etc and then hosts file, and I'm going to provide my password, and now I'm in here and I'm going to do the same. So let me do this, sorry, tab karani.training.com. make sure you write these spellings well correct, and by the way, the name that you provide here must be the name of your site. It has to be the name of your site. If you don't provide the name of your site, your thing is just not going to work, and you are going to start thinking this thing is just not working. So please make sure that what you provide there is the name of the site that you have created. Training.com. All right, then Control X, Control Y, write my changes and exit, and yes, my changes have been written. Just for the sake of it, and just to make sure that these things kick in, I'm going to restart my server. My server has restarted and there's no error, and then I'm going to do this. Now look at this. This is the moment of truth. Reload this site. This site runs well. All right, then I'm going to go here and I'm going to do karani.training.com, and then I'm going to supply the port number. The port number is 8006, so 8006. Let's see whether our site is kicking in, and our site just kicked in. And if you want to know that this is a different site, just come to the first site here and go to /login. Allow this thing to log in. Okay, so I am logged into the site that we created first. All right, you see I am logged into our site here. This is port 8006. Then I come to this other site and reload. This one is just still showing my home page. What if I just go here and tell it to log in? Is it going to take me in? No, doesn't take me in. And this is to show that this is a completely different site from what you have here. Prove that by doing this. You just go to home page on the site that you are logged in. This one shows the home page. Then try to supply here login. Note that when you supply login on this site, this one, the one that we have not logged in into, it is showed in the login page. It is expecting us to log in. This one, let's see what happens when we click on /login. You click on it and it takes you directly inside. It knows that you are logged in. So that's our first site, created and working. Second site was Geoffrey. So Geoffrey.training.com:006. Reload. And our site kicks into life. So here we have karani.training.com. Then here we have Geoffrey port 6000. Let's see when we go to login here. Let's see what happens, and this is what we have. Let's try to log in into the second site. This one says it is not correct. What did I provide as my password? Oh, I lost my password. Administrator, and let me see. Yeah, that one I lost. I don't know what I supplied as the password, but basically you can see now we have different sites. And if you want to, let me see whether I can log into this. No, I can't. I lost both passwords. What if I do, what password did I provide here? Okay. Now this password is the one that we were provided when we were installing the site, and I have unfortunately lost all of them. Okay, this one has logged in successfully. Thank you. So save. I don't want to lose it again, and I know even the other one is the same. So this one is in Karani, remember. Now come here to apps and look at about. Look at the apps that we have here. We have library management, Frappe, and we have that. And this other one, this other site, this is what we have. Let's see here. We have loan management, not loan. I want library. I want library. Where is our library management? A library is here, and on the other one we also have a library application here. Okay, so we have our apps kicking in into live very well. So this other one still is not logged in, and so it's not going to allow you to get in. Okay, perfect. Now there's one more thing I wanted to show you. Look at what happens to the database. Come to the code and let's go to our first site here. This is geoffrey.training.com. Open it and then go to site config. This is the site config. Look at the DB name. The DB name is _ 4 zeros and then it ends with 2113. Come here, go here, reload here. We have this one I need to compress. I don't need this. We have a site that starts with 4 zeros. Where is it? The first one here. Look at this. This site is what Geoffrey, is it Geoffrey? Yeah, is what Geoffrey.training.com is using. This is a site. And then compress Geoffrey, come to Karani, then sorry, come to this site config for Karani. Here you see we have a different DB name. This one is starting with _17 and then it ends with 95A. Let's see that _17 95A. So this is the site that our Karani.app is using. So here we see that for every site we have a completely different database. Perfect. So that is how you set up multi-tenancy in Frappe and or ERPNext.